Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Supreme Court's Constitution Bench has fixed August 2 as the date for commencement of hearings in the bunch of petitions filed against the centre's decision to nullify Article 370 and 35A in Jammu and Kashmir. Remember that historic call to abrogate these articles was taken by the central government via the President and announced by the Home Minister on August 5 in 2019. And almost exactly 4 years down the line, the matter on the decision's constitutional validity will be heard by the apex court. The petitions have challenged the presidential order which blunted Article 370. The article had accorded special rights and privileges to the people of Jammu and Kashmir since 1954. That was done by incorporating Article 35A in the Constitution by order of then President Rajendra Prasad on the advice of then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and his cabinet. The Parliament, remember, was not consulted at that time. The big question we'll look at today is, can the decision to abrogate Article 370 and 35A be struck down on the basis of constitutional validity, or can they withstand that question of the legal test? We'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. First up, in a hearing today, the court has said that centre's fresh affidavit mentioning that Jammu and Kashmir is witnessing an unprecedented era of peace, progress and prosperity following that decision will have no bearing on the constitutional challenge to the repeal of the provision. CJI announced that the affidavit therefore will not be relied upon for the purpose of this case because the case pertains purely to a constitutional challenge. Meanwhile, written submissions have to be filed now by July 27, while the day-to-day hearings, as I mentioned, will begin on August 2. Now, this is what the fresh affidavit filed by the centre said while defending its move. The government has said that there's an unprecedented stability and progress in Jammu and Kashmir, which is a union territory now. Historic step of abrogation of Article 370 brought peace, development and security in Jammu and Kashmir. It also added that stone pelting incidents have completely ceased in 2023. So in the last 4 years, there's been a decline. Schools, colleges, universities are functioning without strikes since 2019, which was not the case earlier. They've also mentioned that anti-terror activities have dropped from 199 in 2018 to 12 in 2023. And of course, those statistics have been taken into account and debated quite for a while. And finally, the government has also mentioned that the recent G20 meet is a watershed event in the history of Valley's tourism. The big question, though, is, was the move valid? Did the centre have the power to abrogate Article 370 and 35A? And if the President could have done it on behalf of the central government? So first, let me present to you the case against the President's move. Now, Clause 3 of Article 370 requires recommendation of Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. Article 370 can be revoked only if a new Constituent Assembly is convened and recommends. That's one view. The Parliament sure has the power to amend the Constitution and change this provision, but that amendment could be subject to a judicial review. In this case, though, that's not what has happened. Now, here is the alternative view on the President's move and the government's move, backing the government's position. Firstly, that the government did not revoke the article but nullified it. Therefore, the action did not need a constitutional amendment and only a presidential order in this case. Now, the issue about Jammu and Kashmir Constituent Assembly does not arise because it was dissolved in 1957 itself. On top of that, in 2019, when the decision was taken, the state was under President's rule. Thus, the last provision of Section 3 has become infructuous. So that's the other argument. Finally, let me also break down what the contention of the petitioners is. And there are a host of issues that they've raised. Firstly, that the presidential orders of August 5 are unconstitutional, void and inoperative. They have also invoked the doctrine of colorability, which basically means that doing something indirectly, what is not allowed directly, is wrong. The President did not take Assembly's concurrence and therefore this decision does not stand the scrutiny of constitutionality. The Parliament does not have the powers to downgrade federal states into a union territory. So even that decision has been called to question. And they have also objected to the delimitation exercise, saying that it violates the right to equality. With that, let's go across to our guests joining us. The big debate coming up: can abrogation of Article 370 survive this constitutional test?
टेम्परेरी प्रोविजन था उसको खत्म करना चाहिए था 5 साल 10 साल के अंदर। 70 साल के बाद सरकार ने खत्म किया तो बिल्कुल सही किया, इसलिए हम सरकार के फैसले के साथ खड़े हुए हैं।
अब एक तरफ से तो आप सुप्रीम कोर्ट में कहते हो कि हालात बिल्कुल ठीक हैं, अगर हैं तो जो आपने श्रीनगर में ये साइकिल सजाए हुए हैं सिर्फ उन पे बैठ के सवारी करिए ना।
Let the law take its own course. Now that the charge sheet has been filed, it obviously has to be judicially adjudicated.
Let's go across to the guest joining us. Guru Prakash Paswan is the spokesperson of the BJP. Imran Nabidar is from the JKNC, one of the parties opposing this move. Retired Air Vice Marshal Kapil Kak is joining us. He's one of the petitioners in this case. Yana Mir is a journalist based in the Valley, and Kailash Vasudev is senior advocate. Air Vice Marshal Kapil Kak, let me begin with you. What do you think would be the fundamental case for petitioners like you? The fact that it was not concurred with the Legislative Assembly, or that this couldn't have been taken, this decision couldn't have been taken at all?
No, I think you, in your introductory remarks, you said it very well. Basically, this decision, to my mind, and I'm not a legal expert, I'm basically a conflict resolver and a peace builder in the state of Jammu and Kashmir last 20 years since I retired. So my assessment as a non-political animal is these actions were unconstitutional. Now let me explain how. Number one, that you yourself said what you can't do directly, you can't do indirectly.
Right.
Number two, fundamental principle of the power and grandeur of asymmetric federalism in India gave Jammu and Kashmir a special status under Article 370 of the Constitution. We need to differentiate between 370 and 35A.
Sure.
Because 370 is what gives Jammu and Kashmir a special status. 35A is a carry forward of a Maharaja's promulgation sometimes in 27 by reserving certain categories like land, jobs and other opportunities to locals, which is a demand all over India now 100 years later. So that is the first point. Second point is that in federalism, which is the basic structure of the Constitution, and this is our appeal, that this federalism has been disturbed and the basic structure of the Constitution, which can't be touched, has been violated by abrogating Article 370. I'm very glad you mentioned that it is abrogation and it is not complete removal or nullification, because if you do that, Article 1 of the Indian Constitution says that India, that is Bharat, constitutes, names all the states, including Jammu and Kashmir. Against that, in brackets, is subject to Article 370. You remove Article 370, Jammu and Kashmir is no more part.
So, sir, how do you contend with the argument?
Very,
sir, I'm sorry, I have limited time, so I'll just interrupt one second, because like you said, I've explained some of the contentions the petitioners are making, but how do you contend with the argument that the article was meant to be temporary to begin with, and even 35A was added without consultation of the Parliament?
Complete hogwash. I'm sorry, complete hogwash. This is a problem of propagandizing an issue which is so sensitive and is part of a very, very strategic geography of India. It has never been an article which is temporary. If you see, Supreme Court judgment itself has said, I don't want to give you details of the judgment, that over the years it has acquired a permanent character. The only point that you can say about temporary nature of this, it is listed under the Constitution under the heading of special. Don't forget, it's special first and then temporary, which means why was it temporary? It was in 1949 when we were talking about it. The Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir had not yet decided to endorse the accession of Jammu and Kashmir to India under Article 370.
But sir, is it also not correct to say? Is it also not correct to say that Sheikh Abdullah wanted it to be ironclad? He wanted it to be permanent, but the then government of India refused to make it a permanent provision and included it only as a temporary provision.
This seems very strange. The government of India would have liked Jammu and Kashmir to be part of India like any other state. It is the towering figure of Sheikh Abdullah who insisted that because of the circumstances under India was partitioned, Jammu and Kashmir, being a Muslim majority state, had to be given certain provisions which made it special. And don't forget, I'm sorry I'm taking too much time. This was at a time when Pakistani raiders were in Jammu and Kashmir. The Pakistan regular army was almost in occupation in Jammu and Kashmir, but for the Indian Air Force actually flying in troops into Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, in Srinagar airport on 27th of October 1947, Jammu and Kashmir would have been under the control of Pakistan. We could have gone to UN forever. So please understand the larger dynamics, and I think the viewers are getting confused by the propagandizing. Everything is normal in Kashmir. Yes, of course, tourists are there, hotels are full, but please see the normalcy in the hearts and minds of the average Kashmiri.
Fair enough. I didn't want to mix the issue about what is the situation on ground today versus what is the constitutional test, because I think the CJI has also made it clear the impact of the action is not really the fundamental argument today. But on that, let me go across to Guru Prakash, because the court very clearly said today, whatever may be the reasons in the minds of the government and whatever may be the benefits of the abrogation of Article 370 and the unification, if I can use that word, of Jammu and Kashmir without any terms and conditions and special provisions with the rest of India, that is not the issue here. The issue here is if this was done in a manner that meets the constitutional test. Guru Prakash.
Shivani, a very warm good evening to you and all my fellow panelists. And since we are debating on a constitutional issue, I have a copy of the Constitution of India with me as I come to your debate. Shivani, Part 21 of the Constitution of India. Let me categorically state that the Part 21 of the Constitution of India categorically says temporary, transitional and special provisions. It is not us, it is not the Bharatiya Janata Party, it is the makers of the Indian Constitution. It is stalwarts, it is the visionary, it is the people who have made supreme sacrifice for our country. It is the people who drafted the Constitution. It were the people who had the vision and foresight to run the country. So the simple fact of the matter is that Article 370 is part of the Constitution which was initially intended to be temporary and transitional. Point number 2. Article 370, as long as it was in existence, it was the most regressive legislation in the history of our country. You can ask any of my friends on the other side who was supporting Article 370, the most anti-women legislation, the most anti-Dalit legislation, the most anti-tribal legislation, the most anti-backward legislation. People only from a certain families, the Said family, the NC family, the PDP family, the First family, the Gupkar Alliance family were the beneficiaries of Article 370, which was elitistic and exclusive in nature. Number 3, my friend, the panelist who was speaking before me, he said it's a Muslim majority state. It is definitely a Muslim majority state. But for the first time in the history of Jammu and Kashmir, Shivani, we must understand, for the first time since the last 75 years, we have a backward Muslim, a Pasmanda Muslim, Ghulam Ali Khatana, who has been sent to the Rajya Sabha from the presidential nomination. Has it ever happened before? For the first time, Shivani, we saw in the DDC polls, in the local polls, people from the disturbed areas, the conventional, traditional disturbed areas, they came out in large numbers and participated in the process of decision making. In democracy, today we have Ajaz engineer, we have multiple leaders who have come out in support of abrogation of Article 370.
I get that. Guru, again, once again, this. Guru, once again, we've debated, of course, the benefits. Yes, 10 seconds.
Can I come in here, Shivani?
I'm coming to you, Naviji. I'm coming.
I was just going through. Shivani, I was just going through the tweet of a bureaucrat who has stopped the UPSC Civil Services examination in 2009. Mr. Shah Faisal. Mr. Shah, I did not speak, sir. We are talking about constitution, we are talking about democracy. Let's have that peace and decency, sir. Thank you. Mr. Shah Faisal, who has stopped the civil services in the country, a senior bureaucrat, he has tweeted that Article 370 is a thing of past for many Kashmiris. 80% of terror incidents are now down. Infrastructure development at an historical pace. IIT, NIT, aims, institutional development, expressways, everything.
I get that.
The vision
But
of
Guru,
New
once again, I have to
Kashmir
just come
is
back to
going
the
be
issue at
realized
hand.
at all costs,
With
Shivani.
the issue at hand, I don't think that many would debate, let's say, the benefits of the abrogation or whatever the government has managed to achieve in Jammu and Kashmir since this action was taken. But let's stick to the subject of whether the constitutional parameters were met. Imran Nabi Dar wanted to come in on what you said. Yes. What's your objection?
Yeah, I mean, there were many things which he said, the speaker just before me, which I don't agree with.
Okay.
And they have no foundation on what he has been saying. About giving representation to scheduled tribes, he mentioned Khatana Sahab. Let me remind him, it was National Conference who gave mandate to Chaudhry Talib Hussain, and we made him win. People made him win from Udhampur constituency, from on a Lok Sabha, for a Lok Sabha constituency. You have just nominated him for a Raj Sabha seat. You have to understand.
You are no one
not
to make
arrogance.
anyone.
You are wrong.
You
No,
are
please
no
let
one
me.
to make anyone.
No,
It
let
is
me
the
make.
people of Jammu and Kashmir. This is
No,
your
no,
arrogance
let me
speaking.
make. Let
This
me.
is your arrogance, sir.
Okay,
I
let him
disagree
complete,
with
let
you,
him
sir.
complete, Guru.
Disagree with
Let
you,
me.
sir.
The problem
Did
is.
you send anyone to Rajya
The
Sabha?
problem. This
No.
is the problem.
Did you send
This
anyone
is
to the upper house?
This is the
No.
problem.
Please
What you
look
just
beyond
said.
the first
What? No. What?
families. The
Let me make
democracy
my.
is now
No, let
decentralized.
me make my point.
Okay, he corrected
You
are
himself. Let
peddling
him, no,
lies.
Guru,
You are
let him
peddling-
continue. He corrected himself. Let him continue. But can I just
No,
bring you
he-
back?
he
Can I
has
just bring you
peddled
back
lies.
to the subject of
He
the
has peddled
constitutional
lies. I have
challenge?
every right to. I have right every.
Can I just bring you back to the issue of the constitutionality?
Yeah.
On that, if you can please make your point. Why do you think this is injustice when it was a temporary provision, as the BJP or the government says, to begin with, and it's been debated for 70 years that this needs to go?
I think I will not repeat what Mr. Kapil Kak just said. I think he made very valid points. What he said about the temporary thing about the Article 370, that is what the fact is. It was the Constituent Assembly which had to ratify it, and Constituent Assembly couldn't ratify Article 370. That was the reason that it was kept as temporary at that time. And then what Mr. Kapil Kak said subsequently, then there were at least 2 Supreme Court judgments which actually then called Article 370 has attained permanent status. So coming back to the present situation right now, we are happy that at least the hearings have started, and I'm happy that the primary affidavit that was filed some time back, the affidavit that was submitted by the government right now is the supplementary affidavit, and it's a very weak affidavit. You have to understand one thing: the government makes a point about G20, about tourism, about no stone pelting. That is okay, but there is nothing on legal or constitutional.
Fair enough.
Facts.
They'll make that argument, but do you concede? Nabiji, do you concede that things are better for ordinary Kashmiris since the abrogation of Article 370, both in terms of legal rights and also in terms of the suppression and the eradication, if not completely, but to a large extent, of terrorism, of blocs that used to hold Kashmiris and their lives to ransom for their own political motives? Would you concede that much?
See, if you say normalcy as per, if you look normalcy through your understanding, my understanding of normalcy would be different.
I didn't say the word normalcy. I deliberately did not use the word normalcy, but I just used the words. For example, the statistics speak for themselves. No, yes.
I agree with you. Okay, there might be low levels of stone pelting. I do not doubt it. There are good numbers of tourism, but it is not a new thing. It has happened earlier also. If you check the figures, if you remember in 2011, the another thing that BJP has been peddling, another lie that they have been peddling, is that they are the ones who have held panchayat elections in recent times. It was during Umar Saab's regime when panchayat elections were held in 2011. 80% voting was recorded at that point of time. So these are all variables which keep on changing every now and then. In last 30 years, these variables keep on changing. But facts remain facts. There are certain things that you cannot change. As I said earlier, this is a constitutional issue.
This is a constitutional issue. All right. Let me go across to the lawyer on the panel.
I will just wrap up.
Yes.
I will just wrap up my argument with one instance. If there is a murder convict, tomorrow the victim family will live peacefully. Will the argument will be that now that the victims are living peacefully, so let the murderer go. Let the murderer, we should not try the
Okay,
murderer.
I'm not sure
So
if the analogy applies here because you're equating it, the abrogation to
No, it is
murder,
just an
but
analogy.
I'm not sure the analogy applies. I take your point. I have to move on to our other guests, Yana Mir and Kailash Vastev. Yana, just give me a couple of minutes before I go across to Kailash Vastev. Sir, the government's argument also seems to be on the issue of constitutionality that this is now a fait accompli. Do you think that legal argument will stand in this case, that there is no way to reverse this anymore?
Is that question directed at me or Yana Mir?
Yes, Mr. Vastev, that is for you.
See, the position is this. Good evening. Nice to meet all of you on the panel. Let's get certain basic constitutional positions right. The first 4 articles of our constitution deal with the territory of India and how it is to be managed. Under Article 3, Parliament has the absolute power to alter, amend boundaries, status of states, and the positions of union territories. This power comes after the judgment of 1960 in the matter of the settlement of or treaty between India and Pakistan for the distribution of power and distribution of states and areas between Bangladesh, now Bangladesh, then East Pakistan, and portions of West Pakistan. It's a very famous judgment of 1960 where the president made a reference. Please tell us what kind of a situation we can face if you enter into these kind of territories of increasing territories or ceding territories. The Supreme Court Constitution bench said that you have the power under the constitutional scheme to alter, amend your boundaries, not only of the states but international boundaries.
Okay.
If you keep that in view, Article 3 then comes into play. Article 3 very clearly says it can increase or decrease the area of a state, change the status of a state, and change the boundaries of the country. This is the power which the Parliament has exercised in the larger interest of the country. Reading Article 370 to be, I assume it is not a temporary article, just for the sake of argument.
Right.
Nothing precludes Parliament from changing the status of a state because Jammu and Kashmir is recorded as an integral part of India in all our declarations and documents.
Okay.
It is more so recorded after Hari Singh, the then Chief Minister, the King of Jammu and Kashmir, ceded Jammu and Kashmir to India with Chief Minister, the then Mr. Justice Mahajan, who eventually became Chief Justice of India. Look into that background. Notwithstanding the onslaught which took place in 1947-48, when there were mercenaries and all attacking our territory. So therefore, after the merger of India by the ruler Hari Singh himself, the dissipation of energies into this kind of a situation, whether Jammu and Kashmir is a part of India or no, that goes. We have ceded territories between Jammu and Kashmir and the borders of now Bangladesh as an arrangement in the cases of 1960. So this power is absolute with Parliament. It can amend, abrogate and change
the
territories
status
in accordance with the powers available under Articles 2, 3 and 4 of the Constitution.
Okay.
This is an action which Parliament takes in the interest of the nation or on its own wisdom. I'm not speaking of political parties.
Right.
I'm
Yes,
speaking
and this was
strictly in terms
mandated
of
by the
law.
Parliament.
I'm dealing with this strictly in terms of law and what powers are available.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate your view from a legal perspective.
I'll give you another example.
Sir, can I just take Yana Mir in and I'll come back to you if I can. Yana Mir has been waiting. Yana Mir, I just want to also understand from you the perspective, let's say, of an ordinary citizen, right? Do you believe that this is an episode that needs to be revisited, or is it the need of the hour to just move on from here now? What has happened has happened. You could argue, we could continue to argue, but one side will say it was always meant to be temporary. The other will say no, that temporariness got eroded over a period of time. What do you think?
I think that 98 constitutional amendments were made by Congress. No hue and cry about that. But this one just seems to be getting blown out of proportion. So where is the propaganda actually coming from? You tell me. And the second thing is, if you talk about, well, I will not talk about temporary status or anything, but I'll just say that there are 3 ways. There are 3 very simple ways to amend a constitution, either by simple majority in each house or special majority in each house or by the state legislature. And like you rightly mentioned, when the state legislature was already dissolved. Okay, so that question doesn't arise. Now, if we take into consideration that no Kashmiri will ever deny the existence of the constitution of Jammu and Kashmir. There was the constitution of Jammu and Kashmir also, which is what was bound to India by the Article 370, so they claim. So even if you go by the constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, it says in it very clearly, Article 5 says that it is it is a part of India and that can't be changed. And the other thing that it mentions in one of its most important clauses is that the Indian Union can intervene and make any amendments if it comes to 4 core issues in Jammu and Kashmir, and that is defense, communication, foreign affairs, or finance. Please underline the word finance. Now, for 60-70 years, central government's funds have been getting embezzled. They're not reaching the public. Since you mentioned the public, finally, you know, all this lawyer jingo is going on, all this these big words from the dictionary. The public has got nothing to do with it. The public wants to see what's in it for me. What was in 370? For God's sake, all these people, these 23 writ petitions, has anyone asked them what was in that special article? What was it? What was in it for the general public? Where were the central funds getting embezzled? Where were they disappearing? Why was the public not getting any benefit from the centre's funds? Now that is finance. And the centre has every right to intervene because it includes the word finance. Nobody wants to underline that point. And they keep calling it the abrogation is unconstitutional. Well, the embezzlement of funds that was happening under the pretext of Article 370 because it gave the power to the CM of Jammu and Kashmir not to be transparent with the funds that were coming from the centre. And that is why, if you notice, all these writ petitions came from politically active people or those who, they call themselves activists and lawyers, but they all were patronized by these 2 political parties, the Muftis and the Abdullahs. It was very clear because there is nobody from common public coming. In fact, out of the 23 who have already withdrawn, who have requested.
Okay, fair enough. I think I get your point.
They are seeing that the general public is happy with the abrogation.
No, I get your point, and I think this is a complex issue which has social dynamics interlinked very closely with it. I thank all of our guests for joining us. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but as the Supreme Court hearings near, we'll try and delve into this issue further as well. A big thanks to our guests for joining us. We also have some breaking news coming in, and this is coming in from Bengaluru, another shocking piece of crime report. The CEO and managing director of a tech firm was allegedly killed by an ex-employee. Phanindra Subramanya, the managing director, and Vinu Kumar, the CEO of the Aeronix Internet company, have been allegedly killed by a former employee who barged into their office and attacked them with a sword. This is what the police has said. Let me also go across to my colleague Harish, who's joining us. Harish, the government in Karnataka is already facing a lot of questions over one Jain monk's murder, and brutal one at that. Now there is a double murder coming to light.
Yes, what we do understand right now is that prima facie the police are suspecting that it's a case of business rivalry. All these 3 people, the 2 who have been killed and the man who's killed them, identified as Felix, all 3 were working in a company a couple of years back. They stepped out, and while on one hand you had Phanindra Kumar and Vinu Kumar actually setting up their own internet company, Felix also had started his company. There was business rivalry between these 2, and Felix suspected that Phanindra Kumar was constantly ensuring that the business that his company should have ideally got was being diverted. His business opportunities were ruined by these 2. And that's why today he's barged into their office in Amritsar police station limits and killed them, one on the 2nd floor and the other on the 3rd floor, is what the police are telling right now. He's also had 2 people assisting him in this crime right now, all 3 absconding. But if you look at the Instagram status that the accused has put up, he seems to be indicating that he's been shortchanged by these 2, and that's why he's taken this route. But the police now are trying to ensure that, one, they gather more details about the other 2 accused who helped Felix in this, and also try and trace all 3 of them.
Right, Harish, I appreciate you joining us with the latest details. Certainly a serious case coming to light from Karnataka one more time. Now moving on, heavy rains continue to wreak havoc across North India. Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are the worst hit. Death toll has climbed to 37 in the state of Himachal alone. Streets are waterlogged, highways are jammed and bridges are getting washed away. The army and NDRF teams have ramped up their efforts to enhance relief and rescue operations in these regions. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also took stock of the situation, held talks with the chief ministers of Himachal and Uttarakhand and assured both of all the help on behalf of the central government as far as this matter is concerned. The big question we ask, with an expert joining us in just a bit, as far as this rain fury is concerned, one of the wettest July in many parts of the country in decades, is the worst yet to come. Take a look also at one of the reports from Himachal.
Due to excessive rainfall in Himachal Pradesh, uncalculated damage is taking place, and there's another spot in Shimla district's Jubbal Tehsil which I'm showing you right now, and in fact the spot where I'm reporting from, it also seems to be very, very dangerous. I would request my camera person to just show some cautions here. You can see how this entire stretch of the road is completely collapsed, and in fact this is a main road which is heading towards the main market of Jubbal. In fact, on that side you can see this building is in a very, very dangerous spot because the collapse has happened on the wall of this building, and this is due to the excessive rainfall which happened in the entire state for last 4 days. Even as I speak, the rain has stopped for a while, but damage is not calculated as of now. The state administration is saying that more than 4,000 crore is the assessment, tentative assessment as of now, the damage which has incurred to the state, and of course the assistance has been provided as of now around 2.48 lakh crore. But situation is very, very grim. Administration is asking people to stay indoors, not to venture out in the areas because IMD has given specific warnings for few districts, which includes Shimla district where I am present at this moment. So once again I'll show you, look at the dangerous scenario here in Tehsil Jubbal of district Shimla. In fact, you can see these houses which are down there, they are also in trouble, and you'll find various such spots in the entire state where rains have collapsed. And we have spoken to a few people here. They are saying that they have never seen such situation in last 40 to 50 years in this state of Himachal Pradesh. So this is the situation, this is the ground situation here which we are bringing to you from Shimla district of Himachal Pradesh.
इस वक्त मैं मौजूद हूँ अंबाला कैंट की शास्त्री कॉलोनी में, और हालात क्या है तस्वीरें खुद बयां करेंगी। आप देखिए कि यहाँ पर पानी काफ़ी ज़्यादा है। आगे अगर हम जाएंगे तो कमर तक पानी है, अभी घुटनों तक पानी है, और यहाँ पर लोगों को दिक्कतें भी हो रही हैं। कुछ बच्चे हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं जो पानी लेने आए हैं। क्या दिक्कतें हैं?
पानी नहीं आ रहा, घरों के अंदर पानी है, कुछ भी नहीं हो पा रहा है, खाना भी नहीं बना पा रहे हैं, सामान डूब गया, घर डूब गया, बस पानी के लिए दूर जाना पड़ रहा है। पानी
हमारे घर में बेड डूबा हुआ है, सारा सामान ऊपर रखना पड़ रहा है, फिर भी घर भी टपक रहा है, पर फिर भी डूबे जा रहा सामान। पानी बढ़ते से बढ़ते ही जा रहा है, रखे कहाँ सामान, खराब ही हो गया सारे।
जहाँ तक मेरे सहयोगी चंदन आपको तस्वीरें दिखाएंगे, सिर्फ पानी ही पानी नज़र आ रहा है, और ये लोगों को आप देख सकते हैं कि किस तरीके से यहाँ पर वो लोग अपनी मंजिल तय कर रहे हैं जिनका घरों से निकलना बहुत ज़रूरी है। तो यहाँ पर देखिए कि लोग कह रहे हैं उनका घर डूब गया है, उनका सामान पूरी तरीके से ख़राब हो चुका है, लेकिन पानी कम नहीं हो रहा है, और अगर बारिश होगी तो इनकी दिक्कतें और पेश होंगी। और दूसरी तरफ मेरे सहयोगी चंदन आपको दिखाएंगे, देखिए किस तरीके से लोगों को जैम से भी दो चार होना पड़ रहा है। तो ये आप देखिए कि एक तरफ तो पानी की मार है ही, दूसरी तरफ जो लोग निकले हैं वो अपनी मंजिल तक कब पहुंच पाएंगे लोगों को मालूम नहीं है।
If we talk about comparing it to yesterday, so today the situation is far better from yesterday, because yesterday several routes been diverted in Chandigarh. If we talk about sector 43 where Chandigarh bus stand is situated, sector 42 else then sector 23 and 24 Chowk, Sukhna Lake area, then the colonies that been made near the Sukhna Lake or the Dhanas area where the dumping ground is situated of Chandigarh. So that major area been affected, and right now here at near Sukhna Lake, where floodgates been opened yesterday, and you can see the effect. It's from here the level, the road I am showing, from the level of the road, the flood water was 15 to 20 feet above. So you can imagine its effect, and now people been suggested to stay away from this sort of area, but the water level been decreased from yesterday, because till today early morning the water was seen, the flooded water was seen, which was on the road, and also you can see the trees, all the things been damaged, as near areas of this particular Sukhna Lake the flooded water has entered the homes, and 4 to 5 feet water has entered, and the things of the people, the houses been affected by the flooded water.
इस वक्त हम मौजूद हैं हिमाचल प्रदेश में छोटी काशी कहे जाने वाले मंडी जिले में, जहां पर मेरे ठीक पीछे ये बहने वाली व्यास नदी कल अपने उफान पर थी, और उसकी बड़ी वजह ये थी कि पंडोर डैम के भर जाने की वजह से चारों गेटों को खोल दिया गया था, जिसके बाद ये जो व्यास नदी है प्रचंड वेग के साथ उफान लिए हुए आगे बढ़ती चली गई, और उसके बाद ये बढ़ते बढ़ते पानी यहाँ ऊंचाई तक आ गया था, और वो जो छत आप देख रहे हैं, ये पहली छत, वो पूरी तरीके से डूब चुका था, और ये पानी अगर वहां देखें तो रिहायशी इलाकों में भर गया था, और वहां एसडीआरएफ और एनडीआरएफ को तैनात किया गया था, रास्ता पूरी तरीके से ब्लॉक कर दिया गया था। तो हालात बहुत ज्यादा कल खराब थे, और ये जो हालात हैं, ये जो खतरनाक सिचुएशन है, ऐसा नहीं कि वो अब खत्म हो गई है, ये खतरा और ज्यादा बढ़ता जाएगा आने वाले समय में, क्योंकि मौसम विभाग की ओर से अलर्ट ये जारी कर दिया गया है कि अगले 24 घंटे बहुत ज्यादा खतरनाक रहने वाले हैं। यहाँ पर आप तबाही के निशान देख रहे हैं कि किस तरीके से तबाही के निशान दिखाई दे रहे हैं। ये गेट देखिए, ये गेट अपने टूट चुका है, गेट का ये जो हिस्सा है पानी अपने साथ बहा कर ले गया है। अंदर आएंगे, अंदर आपको दिखाने की कोशिश करेंगे कि और क्या कुछ हालात हैं। देखिए पानी, क्योंकि हमने बताया था कि ऊपर छत तक भरा हुआ था, और ऐसे में ये जो आप सिल्ट देख रहे हैं, इस सिल्ट में नंदी महाराज पूरी तरीके से डूब गए थे, और ये जो घंटी है ये भी कुछ हद तक इस सिल्ट में फंसी हुई थी। ये घंटी सोचिए हम इसे खड़े होकर बजाते हैं, लेकिन यहाँ पर बैठकर बजाना पड़ रहा है। और आगे बढ़ेंगे, मंदिर दिखाने की कोशिश करेंगे। स्तंभ देखिए आप, स्तंभ भी पूरी तरीके से डूबे हुए दिखाई दे रहे हैं। Cutting across to some more breaking updates coming in, and this is on the other Supreme Court decision today, where it said that the extension to the ED chief is not valid. Home Minister Amit Shah has now reacted on this. He has tweeted, and I quote, "Those rejoicing over the Honourable SC decision on the ED case are delusional for various cases. The amendments to the CVC Act, which were duly passed by the Parliament, have been upheld." He also goes on to say, who the ED director is, it is not important, because whoever assumes this role will take note of the rampant corruption of a cozy club of entitled diners who have an anti-development mindset. So let me also go across to my colleague Payal Mehta joining us. Payal, these are very strong words coming in from the Home Minister. Doesn't usually, put out a statement like this.
Yes, and this is a very, very scathing attack of the Home Minister, and a very rare occasion when you see him come out, and this time around he's tweeted about the entire thing. And it's very rare of him to speak about a judgment that has come on the Supreme Court so far. But obviously, with the kind of connotation that one has seen around this, and we've seen the way in which the opposition really has reacted to the judgment, calling it a big slap on the face of the government, here is Amit Shah putting the facts to the face. He's saying that this has been done by way of a law which was cleared by Parliament. He also says that irrespective of the position of the AD director, the person who's holding the position, the motive of the organization, of the institution, in fact, take on anybody who is found corrupt and indulging in corrupt practices. He's once again taken a leap and, taken it forward from what the Prime Minister really said. Remember, the Prime Minister on the 27th of June had said that anybody who's corrupt and anybody who's caught in corruption, his government's guarantee was that they would be brought to the task. So yeah, the Home Minister of the country coming out and putting out a scathing attack, calling out the opposition and saying that there is no need for you to rejoice and be happy. If you are corrupt and if you have to face the law, you will face the law, irrespective of who the position of the ED director or any other central agency is.
Yes, thank you, Payal, for joining us. Powers of the ED to strike at those who are corrupt and on the wrong side of the law remain the same, is the message from none other than Home Minister Amit Shah in a rare attack on the opposition without naming anyone on a fundamental issue of corruption that the BJP has been raising. On that note, time for us to slip into a very short break. Next, we're bringing you an exclusive conversation with India's talismanic football captain, Sunil Chhetri, a rare interview with him. Stay tuned.
Place in multiple parts of the national capital. Certain roads have caved in. Yamuna River is also flowing above the danger mark already, which is why the national capital is tense. Several people from near the Yamuna Ghat have already been evacuated. Unfortunately, some haven't been able to. They're still living there, waiting for some help to come to the fore, which is why we saw today Delhi